Alexandra Handayani. I'm currently a final year student in Biomedical Engineering program from Bandung Institute of Technology. Last year, for about 4 months from August till December, I studied at National University of Ireland, Galway, or abbreviated as NUIG. I enrolled in 4 classes. One class is from Biomedical Engineering Department, which is the course Principles of Biomaterials, and the other 3 classes are from Psychology Department. Those 3 classes are Health Psychology, Developmental Psychology, and Human Sexuality. And behind me, the background is the most famous landmark from NUIG. We call it as the quadrangle or quads. Well, I've got to say that the quads is really, really beautiful. It looks like it's taken from the Harry Potter movie or something. Well, we don't use this building a lot though. They say that this building is more of an office for the university, so the students don't use it a lot. Okay, so the first time I heard about the IISMA program is from the announcement given by the head of the Biomedical Engineering Department in Bandung Institute of Technology. Well, he announced it to our line group and encouraged us, the biomedical engineering students, to join an exchange program like this. So there are 2 stages for the selection process. The first stage is the application selection process itself, and the second stage is the interview. The application process itself is very, very straightforward. There are not many documents needed. We only need first English certificates in the form of TOEFL or IELTS or Duolingo results. Second, the recommendation letter from our university. Third, our academic transcript. Fourth, essay about our purposes and our plans in the exchange program. Well, of course, the first thing I have to prepare is the English certificate because my TOEFL certificate itself has expired when I heard about the IISMA program, so I have to retake the test again. I prepared for the TOEFL test for around 2 weeks with more emphasis on speaking and writing parts. I think taking TOEFL again was the hardest part because after that I just have to ask for a recommendation letter and academic transcript, which is quite easy in my university. And for the essay, for me it's more about being honest. Well, we were only asked about our purposes, our goals, and our plans when we do the exchange program, so I think it will be best if we already have a big picture about it and then you just have to elaborate it honestly. For the interview phase, you don't have to prepare much too. The interview is more to emphasize our answer that we wrote in the essay previously, and it was fully conducted in English. I couldn't believe it myself when I saw the announcement that I got accepted to NUIG, because at that time I only thought that, oh, am I really going to Ireland? Because after the news that I got accepted and all, there were not much to do, and the COVID-19 pandemic was at its highest peak in June and July. So it's only normal for us to be questioning about whether we're going or not going. Well, but then at the 3rd or 4th week in June, we were told to prepare our visa application to Ireland. The visa application itself is not complicated. It only took around a week or 2 before we finally got the stamps. And also the visa to Ireland is free, so there were not many hassles back then. And of course, we also got a lot of help from Miss Miranda from Education in Ireland, who gave us a lot of advices to us and made sure that everything were ready. I think from the pre-departure experience itself, the most unbelievable thing is how kind all of the parties involved. From Miss Miranda, who helped us a lot even in the airport on our departure day, to Mr. Cyril from NUIG International Office, who made sure that we will have everything ready when we arrive in Ireland. They were all very supportive to us, the IISMA awardee. After we arrived to Dublin Airport, we were picked up by a bus to Galway City. We were then directed to have our 10 days quarantine period in Gold Coast Village, one of the campus accommodation in there. The facility itself is nice, but it was pretty challenging for us to get foods, to be honest, as we can't go outside to do any kind of groceries, well, naturally, and most of us were not familiar with ordering food online or do online transactions there. Not to mention that it's quite expensive in Ireland to use the food delivery service. So yeah, getting a food during the quarantine period was pretty much a challenge. And upon arrival too, the first thing that I noticed is different in Ireland is the trash management. Yeah, I know that sounds quite weird, but we were not accustomed to sort our trashes, for example, between the organic, non-organic, or recyclables and bottles here in Indonesia. But in Ireland, well, yeah, every garbage bin is labeled, at least between the general waste and the recycled ones. Well, there were some other things too, and most of the things I can think of is probably what you consider as small or simple things. Like first, we don't use plastic bags a lot when we were shopping in the grocery stores. We must bring our own bag, otherwise we have to pay quite expensive for a reusable bag. And then second, shopping using self-service cashier is common here, unlike Indonesia, where a person would probably always stand by in the cashier section. And third, well, this is actually quite similar in Indonesia, but the folks in Ireland here in Ireland are very, very friendly. That sometimes when we walk around the parks or the cities, they will greet us in a very, very friendly manner. Yeah, it's not a culture shock, I know, but it feels nice to be greeted by other strangers in the middle of the street. But other than that, in Ireland, everyone, of course, speaks in English. Sometimes they speak in Irish, but it's quite rare. And the only challenge for me is probably the accent. In big cities like Dublin or Galway, however, the accent is actually pretty easy to listen to. But in other smaller cities like or counties or in the northern parts of Ireland, the accent could be quite hard to understand. Okay, so during the first week of college, I entered a lot of classes that are available for international students. And after listening to the overview lectures, I chose 4 modules that I think are most relevant to me or I found most interesting for me to study, which I've already mentioned at the beginning of this video. Before I came to Ireland, people told me that Irish accent is a little bit hard to understand. Therefore, it is very normal to not understand the lectures immediately. But to be honest, I found myself that the lectures in NUIG have a more, I'd say, international accent that I think is not that hard to follow the lectures. With all the COVID-19 situation too, I found that the system in NUIG is pretty flexible. You can either attend the class offline or online, depending on your health situation at that time. And in NUIG too, we don't use online platforms such as Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Instead, we use an application called the Blackboard. It is an integrated platform, almost like Microsoft Teams, where we can submit our assignments, see the class materials, attend the lectures, and also record them too. I don't have to change my study habits a lot during my study here in Ireland because I found that the learning pace between my home university in Bandung Institute of Technology and NUIG is not really different. But then it is also different here in NUIG because, well, as I mentioned before, I took 3 psychology classes, and these 3 classes use academic essays as the continuous assessments. And writing academic essays, I have to say, are a lot harder than I expected. And this kind of assignment actually forced us to read a lot because otherwise we can't produce a good quality essay. So I definitely not recommending to pull an all-nighter when doing an assignment like we probably always do back in Indonesia. Other than my psychology classes, I also took biomedical class for the Biomedical Engineering department. It has one-time laboratory session, which I found is quite cool and not as stressful as the laboratory session back in Indonesia. It also has final group project when we did a presentation about innovative technology for delivering insulin methods. I'm already familiar with this kind of topic in my home university, but it's always interesting to discuss these kinds of topics with different kind of people. I also had a final exam in December where it covers all of the materials that I have learned from the beginning till the end. It's quite challenging, of course, as the material for the exam is quite a lot, and all the questions are essays. And also, we do the exam in person, and when I remembered again, the situation in the exam hall is quite tense. I think you'd feel like that was the most intense moment in your life. But I think I did the exam pretty well, and I'll just have to wait for the result now. When I was in my free time, I didn't just study all day, of course. I attend several workshops, like, for example, the IISMA Program. This workshop itself is a very good program, and we were encouraged to not just be a bystander when we saw other people in trouble. I think Indonesia could also implement this kind of workshop too, as it basically just teach you about some basic human decency to be good for others. Other than that, I also explored other parts of Galway City and Ireland. I also traveled to other counties such as Cork, Limerick, Kerry, and Dublin. And throughout my journey, I encountered a lot of beautiful views, beautiful sceneries that I probably can only see once in my life. I also visit a lot of castles and museums where I learned a lot about the highest history and cultures and meet various people, both from big cities and small towns, with a lot of experiences or stories to tell. And there were also various society activities that I can join in the NUIG. For example, I attended some movie nights held by some of the clubs and societies. Once I also attended a society night with the ISS or International Students Society. There were also some discussion nights with the Neuro and Biomedical Science Society where we discussed some academic materials but in a more friendly manner. The societies there in NUIG are really, really fun as they were pretty much made for students with similar interests and hobbies. And there were not much pressures for the student to actively contribute to the organization like what we probably often do here in Indonesia. Sometimes to my fellow international friends too, we held a small party when we introduced to each other our traditional cuisines. And in October 2, we held an event in our dorm for the Youth Pledge Day, where we mixed Halloween tradition with our own traditional folklores like pocong, hantu jeput, and so on. The event was definitely cool, and I think you can watch the after movie in the IISMA channel. Well, if I can go back in time, well, I definitely manage my time more in terms of doing my assessment so that I can provide a more high quality essay and provide a lot more free time to explore parts of Ireland. Also, I really, really want to get rid of my, I don't know, you can call it social anxiety. So that I just can talk freely to other people, as I found that other people have a lot of things or stories to tell. The most memorable experience is probably the process of living alone. I mean, I do live alone when I go to college in Indonesia, but my hometown is nearby, and in Indonesia, we have plenty of access to spices and everything is quite cheap. So living on Ireland all by ourselves are quite a challenge. Well, lucky for me, I have my other fellow ISMA awardees, especially my flatmates. We help each other a lot, from doing groceries together, cooking Indonesian foods together, took care of each other when one of us got sick, study together, be there when we were homesick or when we were down, basically just a lot of things. In the end, one of the things that ISMA gave to me is the unforgettable friendship with fellow awardees. One of the things I like in NUIG and in Ireland in general is the open-mindedness. People in there were so respectful towards others that they don't just judge people before really listening to what the others are going to say. After that, they were also careful in criticizing others, that instead of giving harsh words, they will always give positive feedbacks with encouraging words. Not only that, they were also very respectful in treating other humans. From mental health issues to sexual harassment victims, they do their best to give the victims all of the treatments and rehabilitations needed. Humanizing humans. it was reflected in the lectures I joined and also in some of the workshops I attended. And I hope that Indonesia can be like this too, to respect the victims more and treating them more like a human instead of just an object. If not for IISMA and the experience studying here in Galway, I would probably still a close-minded person with a lack of empathy to others. So yeah, thank you NUIG and thank you Ireland for giving me a lot of insights. In terms of the academic, the learning experience here in NUIG actually encouraged me to read a lot and to make sure that I have enough references to support my arguments. The habit of reading a lot about relevant study matters is one of the habits that I want to bring back to Indonesia. And being respectful towards others is also another thing that I will apply when I go back to Indonesia, specifically being careful with my words when giving feedbacks to others. For my commitment, I think there were not any major changes. I still want to do my best in bringing the advancement of the healthcare systems and technologies in Indonesia, especially after I saw how developed the healthcare systems in Ireland. One simple example is how easy in there to get a PCR test, and it's also free. Imagine a system like that in Indonesia. That will be really, really cool. To wrap up, I'm officially IISMABiased because, well, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I didn't only get the chance to study abroad, but I also got the chance to learn the historical and cultural aspects in Ireland that I got to say is quite different than in Indonesia. Not to mention the most precious friendships with other fellow awardees. All in all, I think for those of you who are thinking about applying for the next batch of IISMA program, well, what are you waiting for? Be bold to go abroad. Thank you.